Hello, everyone. This is Zam Zerwin from FilmFestivalCircuit.com and the director of the Oregon Short Film Festival. Right now, we are gearing up for our fall 2024 screening, which is going to take place on November 10th at the beautiful historic Clinton Street Theater in Portland, Oregon. And in preparation of this event, we have been talking with some of our participating filmmakers. We're talking today with Piotr Toczynski, who is the director behind the film The Yellow Ticket. Piotr, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yellow Ticket it's a great short film. Let me just start out by saying, and it's got such a unique concept. It's a very interesting premise. Tell me what inspired this film.
Yeah, so like there are a lot of things that inspired it, but like the origin in a way is my but the original, sorry, but the origin is like my high school experience. Actually, I had a teacher who had like unconventional teaching methods, and
Okay.
he did run a lesson where he read like a chapter from Crime and Punishment. And I wasn't a strong reader like ever at school. I usually would read summaries of books,
Right.
but like based on that lesson, it kind of sparked interest in me. And I happened to like read more and more of Dostoevsky's work, and this kind of like started my love to his books. This was like something that ignited the idea, but also I was just always very interested in education. I worked for 5 years as an editor for a company that was like developing a program for teaching maths in
Okay.
Australian schools, and they had also like very unique perspective on education and how it should look in schools and stuff like that. And it was always close to my heart, so I was kind of like asking myself the question of like, how far is too far when it comes to unconventional teaching,
Right.
right? Where is the line? Where do we draw the line? And like this has been interesting to me, and I wanted to write something that is very performance heavy, that has this vibe of like Thunder Road, which is the short film that I love by Jim Cummings, and it
Okay.
was also one of the inspirations for the short film. So yeah, so there's that.
Well, I love that. It's such an exciting film. You don't know what's going to happen. It builds a great tension. The performance is great, but in essence, it's actually a very pure concept. And through watching it, I mean, it's a simple film. I learned a lot about some characters from Crime and Punishment. I mean, there's an actual lesson happening
Yeah.
there. And as a spectator, you are one of the audience members. What was the process of writing this? I mean, you obviously are familiar with the nuances of Crime and Punishment.
Yeah. I mean, again, I love Dostoevsky's work. It's just one of my passions in a way, even though I was always drawn into like maths and science and stuff like that. But yeah, I read all of his books, and the writing process actually started with a different idea that I had based on
Okay.
Crime and Punishment in a way as well. I wanted to write something that was mm, where the main protagonist was like a modern days Sophia, the character
Okay.
from Crime and Punishment. Like, but when I started to write it, after a few scenes, I realized I'm trying to squeeze a feature film into a short, which is a
Okay.
trap that many
Yeah, the
filmmakers
scope's a lot
fall
bigger
into,
on that.
right? Yeah, exactly. And I realized, luckily, that I'm doing that. I'm trying to squeeze it there, right? So I like took a step back and thought like, what do I want to do that like has this vibe of this original idea, but it happens in one place, in real time, pretty much, right? And yeah, and that's when I kind of reminded myself about this when I recalled this lesson from high school that I had, which started all of this for me, in a way. So yeah, so the writing process for that was it is my first short film as a writer. So it was difficult. Like I had days when I
Totally.
felt like I can't do it, like
Right.
and the other days when I wrote a page, and I felt great. So it's part of the process, I think, and I'm getting more familiar with it these days. But yeah, but back then it was a big challenge for me, a very emotional journey, I would say.
Totally. Well, so it's interesting. You come from a background of directing, correct?
Yeah, but also it's my first directing experience actually. The
Oh, really?
short
Oh,
film. I
okay.
mean, I directed some stuff earlier, but
Right.
it wasn't like narrative projects. It
Okay,
was more
totally.
like commercial projects in a way, right?
Interesting. So you're coming from a certain type of background and trying to use your experience to on the fly learn something new and put it into play. I think that's very interesting. Tell me a little bit about the characters and the casting. Obviously, your lead is fantastic, but I also
Yeah.
love coming from an adult perspective watching it. I see the Levi or Levy, who is the
Yes.
lazy kid. He's kind of me, and the teacher is kind of who I would have been pushing up against. Now as an adult, I can see this role, and it's very fascinating dynamic. Tell me about the characters and the casting.
So both of these actors are amazing, right? Amazing. And
Yes.
I knew right away. By the way, the film we shot it in Poland, but I knew I have to have, because film is pretty much in English. It happens in
Right.
bilingual high school, but like but the dialogue is in English pretty much, right? So I knew I have to have a native speaker for the lead. It
Okay. Yeah.
couldn't be someone like, it couldn't be a Polish actor just knowing English very well, because the dialect is so specific, and it's actually, I think it's very challenging for the actor. So I knew it has to be a native speaker. And it took some time. It took some time to find Renee. We were trying to, get a help from a casting director from London, but it kind of didn't work out. But in that process of like talking to casting directors, we kind of came up with with the idea of looking for someone who has some kind of Polish heritage in their
Okay.
bloodline, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And Renee Zeger, he's the lead actor that we ended up with, who's perfect for the role. And his grandfather had like Polish heritage. Was I think
Okay.
he was like half Polish, half German, or something like that. His grandfather, I mean. So we contacted him. He liked the script, and I had a few actually Zoom calls, and I thought it would be a very difficult decision when I was like interviewing via Zoom actually.
Right.
But when I did like test reading, script reading with Renee, like after like 15 seconds, I knew that's him. Like it was so obvious to me, so obvious to me.
Okay.
So casting him was very very easy and very great experience. And he's a collaborator that I will definitely work with again. Like no way, I have to, like I
Oh,
have to. I
absolutely.
love this guy. And Jeff, the antagonist in a way to our protagonist. um, he's actually an actor that became quite famous in Poland right
Really.
now. Like when I first actually came up with the idea of casting him in the role, he wasn't as famous back then. But like in the process of like pre-production, basically, I realized that this guy like made a lot of appearances in like
Okay.
TV
Yeah.
and stuff in Poland. And he's very original actor. He's very creative. Had a lot of he challenged me in a way as a director, and I liked it. I thought his a way of approaching the role was fresh and unique, and something that was kind of like rebellious in a way,
Okay. Yeah.
which suited the character.
Right.
So I liked it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's great. And the other supporting actors that we have are amazing as well. Like the whole
Absolutely.
cast and crew. Like I loved working with them. Yeah.
Well, yeah, even not seeing the script, I could still feel that they were bringing parts of themselves into the role, and that just
Yeah.
really added so much. And great casting choice. And it's interesting the significance of finding an English speaker who has Polish heritage. And I think some of the small details of this film is that he's interfacing and talking about people who live in ex-Soviet bloc countries and
Yeah.
describing the significance of crime and punishment. They don't want to hear it, but I think there's some significance there where he's got a bit of that history as well. Um, Tell me, what were some of the big challenges from shooting this?
Oh, and I think the biggest challenge was to financing, and I
Okay,
don't think it's a surprise to anyone.
right.
Like finding money to shoot a thing is always a challenge, right? And we were kind of lucky because we managed to crowdfund most of the
Nice.
money for this film. The rest kind of came from my pocket. I I needed to make it a reality. So there is like part of it is my investment as well, but
Totally.
most of the money came from crowdfunding, actually, campaign, and especially one of the people who supported and who was like, even after the campaign, they decided to like raise their pledge so that we could do it in time that we were planning for.
Wow, that's excellent.
So yeah, that was the biggest challenge for sure. But like, I did a lot of preparation for this, for the short film. Again, like, directing a narrative film. It was my first time. I was a debuting director for this.
Right.
So I did a lot of preparation, and I think I did things that excited me a lot during that process, and that's definitely something that I'm gonna take with me to the next project.
Excellent. Well, yeah. What on that line? What other things did you take away from this experience? What other learning points are you going to use for your next projects?
Uh, yeah, so I think writing is the big one, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Writing is something that I want to get better at, and I'm writing right now, you know, and like seeing what kind of was my shooting script versus where we finished the project at, because there are changes from like what I imagined on the piece of paper
All right.
versus what's on the screen, right? There are differences, right? One of the things that is insignificant in a way, but to me is significant, is that, for example, I wanted a very specific song at the credits of the film,
Okay.
and we don't have that song. We have a different song, which is not connected to the film the way the song that I imagined would be.
Right.
Unfortunately, I couldn't clear the rights for this song, but it would be a perfect song to pair with the film. It's a Polish song by a band called Perfect, and it's so beautiful. The text of it is so beautiful, and it resonates with kind of the actions that the teacher takes in the short film.
Okay.
But again, I couldn't clear the rights, right?
Dang.
um, but yeah, writing, like, I my main thing the main thing I do on daily basis is editing. I'm an editor,
Okay.
and um, just seeing from, I was very often, I'm working from the perspective of getting the footage and being the first audience member of like looking at it without any attachment to the
Right.
material, because I'm not married to like a specific shot because it took like 6 hours to shoot it. Like, I
Right.
don't
Right.
care, right? It has to work for me to
Right.
use it, right? uh but with this, it was different. I was like, it was personal, and I was also editing it. I wanted to, I'm glad I did. But like, I for the first time I had the experience of like knowing the initial vision
Right.
versus what it ends up on the screen. So yeah, that experience definitely was also uh valuable for the future. Yeah.
Totally. Well, that's a fascinating insight, and I mean, it must be so difficult to come from the world where you can edit anything, you don't care about, you don't have that initial vision, and then seeing exactly where that 2 points kind of intercede, and it's like, wow, dang, okay, now the editing is actually a much more difficult, much more personal problem to have when it's your script and your film. But I think it's great
Yeah.
experience to have to see that and see exactly where the writing, then to the filming, then to the editing. Things can change and manipulate a little bit differently, but that's definitely valuable. And it's always going to be the way that it is. Tell me, are you working on any other films right now? You said you've been doing some writing,
Yeah. So I edit. That's something that I do
right?
anyway, right? And I re-edited a feature film recently, so I have like stuff like that going on.
Cool.
But I'm writing a feature film, right? And actually, it's a feature version of Yellow Ticket. It's not gonna be
Okay.
titled this way, so I'm changing the title for the feature version. But yeah, my hope is to make this piece of like 75 minutes long film, where the scene from the short film is basically almost copy pasted into the feature, and
Okay.
we get to understand more about what this day meant for the teacher, what happened before the lesson,
Right.
and we learn about the aftermath of his decision run it in the way that he
Okay.
did, right? And yeah, I'm exploring some, I think, very interesting aspects of human psyche. I think it's gonna be drama, a psychological one. Hopefully I'm gonna squeeze like a joke or two in there as well,
Totally.
to make it like both dramatic, but also a little bit comedic at some points at
Totally.
least. Yeah, I think I'm at the point where I finished the first draft like 2 weeks ago, and I just recently I got like the first feedback from two people that I trust, two close collaborators um, from different projects. And yeah, I just hope that I get to find the money to make it reality, because I don't know, to me it's gonna be, I feel like it's gonna be a beautiful movie, so
Absolutely.
I truly hope that I get to do it. But it's film. You never know. You
Yeah.
never know if you. But my approach to this is like, I have to have like a proactive approach. And uh, Jim Cummings, which I mentioned earlier, right?
Right.
He's the U.S. director, who is like a father of indie filmmaking in a way in the U.S. And he has this saying, the cavalry isn't coming, the cavalry isn't coming, right? Basically,
Okay.
you're on your own. you
Right.
you shouldn't, like, you shouldn't act as if there is someone who will just magically appear and give you money to do the thing. You have to be proactive and find the ways to create what you want to create.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's my plan. I plan to find a way to make it a reality. Hopefully it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I need
Well,
to learn about like stuff like distribution, stuff like that. It's
totally.
something that's very new to me as well. But yeah, that's my
Well,
plan.
I respect the approach, and I also think what a better way, what's a better proactive way than having this short as a proof of concept. I
Yes.
mean, I can tell you as an audience member, as soon as he drops the axe down and we get the end
Yeah.
credit scene, I want more. And I think any
Yeah.
investor would be able to see that and be like, "Well, Jesus, I'll just pay to finish the story. I want to see what happens," And I think that's this is such a strong work. It's such a high quality piece of cinema that I think this is a great first step in turning it into a feature.
That's my hope. And actually, when I was writing the short, I already had the feature in mind. I didn't know
Okay.
what exactly is gonna happen in the feature, but I knew the feature would be mainly about the aftermath of the lesson.
Okay. Totally.
Uh, yeah, so that's what it is. That's what it is. It was
Excellent.
supposed to be a feature from the very beginning, so I do hope that it's gonna be one. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's fascinating. I think I wish you the best of luck, and I think it'll definitely get done. Well, tell me, is there anything else you'd like to add about the yellow ticket?
Just watch it with open mind, and I want this to be like a uh like something that like sparks the conversation around education, because
Okay.
I think it's not an easy question to answer, actually, whether or not, like, I think that guy, once you watch, what I'm talking about. I think he had good intentions, but like, that's the thing with good intentions, that sometimes they have like unintended consequences.
Totally.
But like, where is that line? Because like, even talking to people who shot the film with me, some of them think that guy is crazy and he's supposed to be in jail, basically. Some
Right.
of them are like, no, he just, like, used methods that maybe go to the extremes, but at the same time, he's a great teacher. Like,
Right.
he does his best to inspire, and that's what counts. So I didn't want the audience, I didn't want my film to be like a definite answer to that
Right.
question. I
Totally.
wanted to be more like a, like in between those answers, so that you can kind of decide on your own and discuss it. So yeah, that's my hope for that.
I love that so much, and I mean, it's such an attention-catching film. The performances are great. It's so exciting. It's got great flow. I know people are definitely gonna love it and form their own opinions about it on November 10th at the Oregon Short Film Festival. I know I did. I'm looking forward to discussing afterwards with what people thought. Is he a good teacher? Does he need to be locked up? Anyway, Piotr,
Exactly.
thank you so much for talking with me, and I can't wait to see the feature version. I'm going to be waiting.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Take care, man.